Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world or whenever you're watching this. Welcome to the 5 Pillars of Health with myself, Julie Tara. And first, just a little housekeeping. If you would like to participate in the conversation or have any questions for us, please do give us a shout on Twitter. Our username is @RoyalAlliance1. We are also monitoring our Google Plus and Facebook feeds. Just search for the Royal Alliance and we will pop right up. The recording of this video will be available on YouTube later this week, as well as posted to all of our social media platforms. So keep an eye out on Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus for those videos. And remember to add the Royal Alliance to your Google Plus circles, so you'll know when we do these events in the future. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search for the Royal Alliance and we will pop right up. So here we are, and I'm so excited about this evening. One of my most favorite friends in Nikken is a phenomenal gentleman that I'm going to get to interview tonight. His name is Michael DiMuccio, Mike DiMuccio, and many of you may already know him. He's a Royal Diamond, lives in Toronto, Canada, and also in Bermuda. And he's just a wonderful, wonderful human being, has been a great friend of mine for the last 18 years. And I am delighted, Mike, to have you here with us for this next hour. Welcome.
Hi, Julie. Thank you. It's really nice to be here. It's kind of funny because I'm used to being on the other side of this Q&A, so it'll be interesting for me too.
Yeah, it'll be really fun. I'm delighted. I've been excited all day about it. So Mike, yes, let's talk about, first of all, your background. Tell us a little bit about how you grew up and what were your interests, what were you good at, where were your talents, where did they lie, and then how you came upon Nikken.
Well, my backgrounds are really diverse. I was always quite good in school. I was good in athletics. I pursued a creative side as well, so I was very artistic. Early on in life, I was painting. I was creating all kinds of projects with a close friend of mine. We would make rockets. We would make airplanes. I mean, at that time in my life, I think I wanted to be an astronaut pretty seriously. And I used to watch programs like The $6 Million Man and Star Trek almost religiously. I think I saw Star Trek 3 times a day. So that was a huge influence in my life. You can only imagine how, whenever there's a Star Trek feature film coming out, how crazy I am to go see it. Anyway,
that's amazing. I just have to say that's amazing, because you've never known this, but when I was a kid, one of the things I wanted to be was an astronaut, and I was fascinated by all the Apollo missions. I used to do whole projects on all the Apollo missions as a little kid, 8, 9, 10 years old.
And so did I. I used to do the Saturn V rocket. Was one of my projects, and I made a point of going down to NASA at one point later in life. And so yeah, that was one. It was almost like that was one very distinct side of me. And there was another side of me. My family is very musically inclined. My mother and father both were singers, and so music was sort of in the blood. And loved to dance, loved music, and so grew up doing that. Favorite band, Earth, Wind & Fire, absolute all-time favorite band.
Totally.
And sort of developed my voice. And so when I actually got to the age moving toward university, I was sort of leading 2 paths, and they were somewhat crossing. I was both recording in the studio, and then I was working toward getting an education. And the education, I decided to go into aerospace engineering because that was what I was inclined to do academically. While at the same time, I was actually in the recording studio starting to write and produce original music. So that was happening simultaneously in my university days. And by the time I actually graduated university, I landed a recording contract. It was a small private label, and they were looking to debut myself. My brother-in-law, then my sister's boyfriend, was my partner and co-writer. And I was the front man. I was the singer. He was the keyboardist, musician. And so we were maybe 2 years away from our first album debut, and I was doing dance lessons downtown. I was actually doing improv at Second City, where a lot of the Canadian famous actors and comics came out of Second City, and now you would have them in the States. So I was doing all those things, preparing for the debut of a recording artist even though I had my degree in aerospace engineering. And I guess, it's funny how life takes its turns. I was the record label had lost their funding because it was part of a larger project, and that project was a multinational project.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were just sidelined. So my brother-in-law went back to working as an accountant, which he studied. And I, on the other hand, just was sort of struck by how little control I had over my life at that time, in spite of the fact that I had all of the desire and hopes of having a career in music and doing something important with my life. I mean, I wasn't a slouch in school. To get the degree in aerospace engineering, you had to be already fairly
smart,
accomplished in terms of academics.
Totally.
And so I was really lost. I was shell-shocked, I think. And a friend of mine who was a former musician said, "Hey, listen, I've got a small electrical contracting company. I could really use some help." He came over to my dad's place, and I helped him wire a bunch of pot lights one evening. He was so impressed with my work ethic, the fact that I could engineer the design of where these pot lights belong and not to interfere with air ducts and so forth. I mean, it was pretty simple, basic physics, right? But for him, it was like, wow, this guy really knows what he's doing. And so he wanted me to come work for him. I thought, I'm not an electrician. What would I do with doing that? But anyway, long story short, I ended up working with him. What was supposed to be just over the summer, while I kind of got my head around what I was going to do next or how to approach the music thing, and he was going to see if he can get me some inroads from his music days. And so 3 months became 3 years. There I am, working as an electrician. And I mean, really, working as an electrician. My fingers are all chopped up, and I'm drilling holes, and I'm doing service panels, and I've got 3 crews under me, and we're doing industrial commercial projects. I'm designing huge factories and the electrical layouts. Even though I'm not an electrician, I know how to do that. I learned how to do it fairly quickly, and I simply wasn't going anywhere in the direction of where I wanted to be in life. But what happens is you have to wake up early, you get to work on the job, you've got responsibilities, you've got crews, you get back home, you're exhausted, and there's really no time or energy to do anything else but rest. And then the day starts again. And so that was a 6-day week for me. Sundays I was just flat out. So it was inconceivable to consider another career, let alone really pursuing my interest in music, and I was slowly dying, I guess you could say. And it wasn't until one day...
What age were you at this time? You were in your mid-20s? Or?
Yep, that's exactly right. I was in my mid-20s, and it was during this that I was involved in a car accident, and that's what really sort of fueled the depression, I think. I don't know if it was I don't think I would call it a depression, but looking back now, it wasn't the person you now know me to be. It was a person who was on pause, who was on hold, or maybe even on rewind. And while I had sustained this low back injury as a result of being rear-ended in the van, that opened a whole new chapter in my life. So now not only was I not going in the direction I wanted to go, now I had to deal with a physical disability. I was undergoing physiotherapy, chiropractic care, massage therapy. This was happening for about 1.5 years every other day. So that was my life, compounded by this physical problem now that was an impediment on just about everything I did, from sitting, walking, sleeping, going to a movie theater, walking in a shopping mall. Anything like that would aggravate my back, and it would be a dull pain that could get very aggressive. And the only relief I ever got from it was when I was lying down on the floor on my stomach, and I'd have my 2 younger brothers at the time press down on my back with their full body weight. That gave me some relief. And
did you ever have x-rays? Did they know what was wrong with the
They said
spine?
It was a soft tendon injury, basically lower lumbar strain of the L5, so it's like a whiplash of the lower back.
Okay.
And they basically said I would have to learn to live with it. So that was the prognosis, and I was about 27 at the time. So that's where things were at before Nikken.
Yeah, a low point, we would say. You really hit a low point. Yeah, and everybody does. I think in life goes in cycles, and flows, and nothing's always on the up and up. So, but this was at a young age, a tender age, and suddenly everything kind of blew up in your face, it sounds like to me.
Now, on top of that, my mother was dealing with issues. She was always dealing with chronic issues, and some psychological, some physical. Eventually it became physical, and she developed cancer. And so there were a lot of responsibilities that I had in the home as well that most kids didn't have at early stages in life, because I had two younger brothers. My mother wasn't able to deal with them the way she would normally a mother, and my dad was always away at work and so forth. So between me and my sister, we were like raising two kids. And so it was just really a compounding of events that put me in the position that I was in, where maybe I was more open than most people are at that point in time in their life when Nikken came along. So
yeah,
I was, I guess, somewhat an optimist, just the same, forever an optimist, hopeful that there would be something.
and were you asking for something? Were you meditating, praying, just asking for help?
I don't know that I was actually doing that on a conscious level. I guess I don't remember doing that, but I sort of live with, I used to tell my mother that, don't worry, Mom, I'm going to be a millionaire. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. I'm going to be a millionaire. And of course she would just sort of laugh at that and say, yeah, sure, I hope someday, whatever. She didn't really believe it, but I did. I mean, there was something about me that I really did believe that. In fact, I was even accused of being conceited at an early stage in life because I was so confident in myself.
Yes.
And that proved itself in school and so forth. But then again, here we are. I'm at 27 years old. Things are just simply not going anywhere in the direction I'd like them to go. Then I have this physical issue, and then I get a phone call. And so,
who was that? Who called you?
Well, a colleague of mine. Actually, it wasn't even a colleague. He was the boss of a fellow who was the boyfriend of my girlfriend at the time. So,
oh, wow.
And so through him, I learned about network marketing, and it was in his introduction of Nikken one cold December night. I think it was like mid-December, and it was a very cold night. I remember being cold and dark, and he said, "Hey, listen, I think I might have come across something that could help your back." Now, he knew a lot about me, and he knew that properly placed, I guess, my ambition could take me somewhere. And he came from the mortgage brokerage business, so he was an entrepreneur, and I think he just completely saw this as a business play, but was naturally curious about the science behind it, and knowing a little bit that he knew about me and the way my mind worked and so forth. I think he saw me as a guinea pig to experiment on me and see whether or not this thing could pan out. So I didn't know any of this. I just go over to his house. He lived about 10 minutes away, so I figured, okay, well, what the heck? What have I got to lose, right?
Yeah.
So I get to his house, and he shows me about the size of a credit card magnet. And he says, "Here, put this on." And I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, where am I putting it, and how am I supposed to put it on? He says, "You're supposed to put it on where it hurts." And I said, well, so I sort of tuck it in my pants, and he leans forward, like I don't even think I have it in my pants 5 seconds. He leans forward, he says, "So how do you feel?" So, clearly this guy had no clue what was going on or what about this, but I said, well, I don't know, am I supposed to feel something? I don't feel really anything. It's a little cool, but I think it was just because it was cold. Yeah, so sure. He says, well, let's just watch this video that came along with it. And that's what we did. We watched a video called Humans Being More, and it told the Nikken story. And Reed Nelson was one of the fellows on that video toward the end, and he said, I mean, the video was so compelling. Everything about it was like, wow, this is like Disney. It was like a Disney fantasy. It was like, you see Mr. Masuda as he's walking in slow motion down this corridor filled with an audience of people onto the stage. I mean, it was just so surreal. Everything about this company, its history, its acknowledgments by the Japanese government and its business success, and just everything about it was like, wow, this is extraordinary. Who are these guys, and what is this? And then they cut to the stories and the testimonials, and at that time was a bunch of the Nikken consultants from the U.S. who had qualified for the trip to Japan, the first North American trip to Japan, go visit Nikken home office. Sure. And they were being interviewed on the bullet train, and I was hearing all these amazing stories, like we do in Nikken. We hear these amazing stories. And I just felt, Julie, that, you know how you can tell late night television, those paid commercials, how just so obviously they're paid actors.
Oh, yeah.
giving these testimonies. I don't even know why they bother. Um, but I could tell that what I was listening to was authentic. These people were really genuine, and they were very professional, and they were from all walks of life. So I knew enough about network marketing. I knew enough about what I was hearing that I thought, my God, if this is even half true, this is like, wow, this is a discovery. This is people need to know about it. I remember hearing like a little quiet voice going through my head. People need to know about this.
Yes.
And so I thought, okay, enough said. I took some time. I brought some information home, but within 48 hours, I had all the answers. My father had a product experience with his sciatica, same product, using it for 2 nights in the small of his back. He went from limping, discomfort, poor range of motion to none of that. Full range of motion, no discomfort, no limp, calling me from work, asking me, can you get some more of these things? I got some friends at work that want to buy them.
Wow.
Now,
and how was your back, by the way, with the card? How was your back after you watched the video?
Well, that's just it. Within about 15 minutes, I had relief, but I wasn't convinced that it was the product doing the relieving and not my excitement over the possibility of hooking up with this thing. So at that point in time, my engineering mind kicks in, and so I was a little bit skeptical on, could I trust the evidence? Was it real?
Yeah, totally.
And that's fair. That's fine. But I did have the evidence through my father, who knew nothing about what this was about. He didn't even know I was looking at this as a business. He didn't know there was a business. It was just coincidental, if you will, if you believe in that he happened to be suffering at the moment. He was going upstairs to bed, and I said, hey, Dad, can you do me a favor? Why don't you try this? I think, put it over where it hurts. He says, well, it hurts over here. I said, yeah, just put this on where it hurts. Anyway, there was something that I remembered on the videotape that was distinctive, that when he called me up on that second day, it was like Wile E. Coyote, the light bulb going off at the top of your head. Mm-hmm. It was like aha, I know this is going to be huge. I was so excited. Like, I remember just being in a frenzy of excitement because I just knew in my blood this was going to be huge. And it was already huge, but I mean, it was going to be huge, and I was going to participate in that hugeness here in North America. And it was when my dad called me back and said, can you get some more? I remembered a fellow on the videotape, Humans Being Born video, said that you can sell anything to anyone. They might like it. They might even tell someone about it. But when you can take away someone's pain, they'll tell everyone about it. And that's exactly what my father was doing. And so it was like, boom, boom, I knew it.
Yes, yes. God, it's so fascinating to hear your story, and it's so interesting. Reed Nelson said a sort of similar click happened. I remember for me, it was like the light bulb went on in my head, and I said, this thing is going to be huge, and I am bound and determined to share it. I just knew it was going to be massive, and that I wanted to be part of that ride. And so it's fascinating to hear you. And it's interesting too, because both you and I, you had science in your background. I wanted to be a doctor when I was young because my dad was a doctor. Then we had the arts. You were in music, and I was in music and ballet. We had that, and both my parents were musicians, as well as my dad being a doctor too. And then, so hearing all that, there's kind of like that left-right brain hemisphere all kind of coming together, when you've got that both going on, the scientific left brain and the wonderful artistic right brain. And I don't know about you, but when I found Nikken, it felt like a kapoom, like my whole brain went on fire, like everything synced up, and it was like, Julie, just go. Trust this. It's huge. It's big. Just do it. And it sounds very similar for you. And we both had back problems, and we both got relief with the products within minutes. I got relief in like 10 minutes, and you in maybe 15, but you just weren't sure because you've got that strong science background, which is great. To have, some skepticism, I think, is absolutely normal and healthy. Cynicism, not so much, I think. But skepticism,
I agree. That's a really good way of putting it. And it just gave me cause to look further into it, actually. I want to understand it, because that was my nature.
Yes, and has been ever since. So you made the decision to do it and jump in, and my goodness, Mike, you jumped in with not just both feet, but the whole of you right in, and you created magnificent success. I mean, even in your very first month or two. Can you tell us a little bit that? I forget exactly your numbers, but I know they were huge.
I sponsored 26 people my first month. I sponsored 9 more my second month.
Wow.
I figured, Julie, I knew enough about network marketing to know that if I was the leader and I didn't lead by some kind of an example, then was anybody going to follow? So I had to exaggerate. It's like being on stage. You have to exaggerate the moves, right?
Yeah.
So that people at the back can see it.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like that. I had to really exaggerate what had to happen so I could create the biggest. I thought, let me aim for the moon and maybe I'll hit the treetops. Just something that could create a frenzy of activity, enough success that whatever I could muster up, people would say, okay, there's something here, and maybe we should follow suit. Because there was nobody in front of me in Canada at the time. I'm sure there were other people, and there were other people who had joined at the same time with me. But as far as I was concerned, I was the leader of my business, the leader of the Toronto/Canada launch, and so if it was going to happen, I had to make something extraordinary happen. So that's what I did. I just did what I thought I had to do.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant to hear that. And, it's funny, I was just talking with Reed today about sponsoring and, the whole idea of sponsoring a lot of people, because Nikken, there's no restrictions on that. We can sponsor as many as we want. And many of us have sponsored.
It's funny. You bring up Reed. He said to me that month, he said, Mike, just go out and make a big mess and we'll help you clean it up later. That was his advice. And
that's what you did. And I remember the same thing, but not with such spectacular results. But you did volume-wise, what did you do, 212,000 or something?
No, first month was 126,000, my personal.
First month, 126,000. And then from there, so then you were you a gold at that point?
Gold my third month. I was silver my first month. Back there, the compensation plan was $40,000 in a month in volume.
Right. Wow.
So it took some doing, but I got that done in the first couple of weeks. I think I was silver in the first 8 or 9 days, something like that.
Yeah.
We had a humans being more. Reed Nelson came in, like he promised. He said he'll help you clean it up, and so by week 3, I think he flew into Toronto, and we had a big event for him. And there was all kinds of things, Julie, that you would never expect to happen. One of the stories that we don't tell very often, but I think is a really interesting story, is that Health and Welfare Canada shut us down in those first 3 weeks. In fact, it was on the drive from the airport with Reed Nelson in the front seat. He received a phone call from Nikken head office telling us that we couldn't sell magnets in Canada.
It's crazy.
And so we had a big event scheduled that night. We were expecting 200 people, and they're telling us we can't sell magnets. And we're like 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the launch, and it's like, what are we going to do now? But, enough of us believe that whatever is wrong, Nikken will figure it out and fix it, because they're not a small company and they're not a fly-by-night operation. This is a company that had already 14, 16 years of history. And so with the confidence that Nikken would sort it out, and Reed was a big part of that because he had been with the company over a year, and he was sure that, guys, just don't worry, relax. We'll do the show, and we'll just keep going, and we'll figure it out. Well, we figured it out pretty quick. Bruce Black was a businessman, and we figured out, hey, if we can't ship the products to Canada, we'll just ship them to Buffalo and drive them across the border, which is what we did. And we had that meeting that night. We had 230 people, Julia, and we did as much as we could, month 1, month 2, and Nikken sorted it out, as of course they would. And it was some overzealous whoever making medical claims and got a bunch of doctors up in arms around it. And, it's all that nonsense that goes with overzealous people and unethical professionals. But the net effect of it is the dust settled. We were in business, and I had a future. I had a life. In fact, in my first month, Julia, I made more money than I would have made as an electrician in 6 months.
That must have been totally delightful. You knew your way to becoming a millionaire was unveiling itself right in front of you. So fascinating, and certainly you have created immense success during your years. It must be how many years now? 19 years or so?
21.
21 years. 21 years. And so now I want to hear the rest of the story to this moment, but I just want to ask you one question before we move on, and that is, some people I've noticed sometimes in Nikken, they get a little nervous to sponsor a lot of people like that. They say, well, I can't handle it all. It's all going to be too much. And so they try to sponsor 1 or 2 or 3, and then they kind of nurse them along, and they kind of lose that momentum. And I always think of just basic physics of, once something's in movement, it stays in movement. You got to get that momentum going. So just how does that work out? Like, you know, would you encourage people to go all out massive action?
Yes, I absolutely would. And I'll tell you what I did to compensate for that issue. If you're going to deal with that many people, then you have to be prepared to deal with that many people. You know the story of if you expect it to rain and you're praying for rain, you better dig some trenches, otherwise why bother raining, right?
Yeah.
So I and my team, which included Bruce Black and included Bo Tennis at the time, we put together a calendar. We put together a schedule of events before we had our first public meeting. We had committed to at least 1 month of events, and it was an aggressive calendar. We were doing 5-6 meetings per week at a hotel of some venue. Afternoon meeting, evening meeting, afternoon, evening on Tuesday and Thursday, a Friday executive lunch, and a Saturday basic training to get people started. And we did that for 4 weeks, plus the HBM that Nikken organized, plus the special event with Reed Nelson. So we had a full agenda laid out because we anticipated the growth. We anticipated we're going to have to deal with this traffic, and this is how we're going to deal with it. We're going to encourage people to bring people at every event. So it's not just us bringing people, it's everybody we bring, we're going to ask to bring more people. And so it will compound from one event to the next event to the next event to the next, just keep compounding in size. And that's how we grew from a handful to 300 people in my organization by the end of the month. We
so
were
you
also
were expecting success. I mean, that's a very important piece there. You were expecting and knowing that success was on its way, rather than wondering, doing a little bit and then wondering, or, you know, checking to see what somebody's up to.
And having that flow in your understanding already, and that basic training once a week, I knew that everybody who was getting involved with us was getting, first of all, access to meetings that they could just bring people to with very little understanding. They were getting access to trainings that would give them basic understanding that they can then turn around and duplicate. So, and it was, we didn't make the business complicated. It was a straightforward business of get excited with your experience of the products, share, bring some people out, let them, whatever it takes, get them out to a presentation, let them experience it firsthand. And so our one-on-one was one and the same. Our presentation was a one-on-one. It was, even though there were, you know, 40, 50, 60 people in the room, it was first exposure. And so I compensated for the one-on-one time with anyone I sponsored by creating a place for them to bring people to continue the process for themselves, to continue learning. I created an environment, if you will, using that precious calendar of events to give them direction, flow, and results simultaneously, because we were really all in the same boat at the same time. I mean, I was only, what, 2 weeks older than anybody else, right?
Yeah.
So we were all learning. In fact, we were stunned in our meetings by hearing testimonials, because we were hearing them for the first time, all of us.
Yes. It's all these miracles. And I love what you say about creating an environment. And I think the same is true today, that it's about creating an exciting, enriching environment, just like we create an environment with the wellness products, for the wellness home, for the human body. We're creating an environment with those meetings for discovery to happen, for discovery to occur, and a safe place where people could feel great about bringing their friends and their guests to it, and then it following on from there. So this momentum piece, I mean, it seems to me in network marketing, this is one of the most critical things that leaders do, is that they create an enormous energy field, they create a great environment for everyone, they sponsor a lot of people, and then, you know, they're showing by that leadership, and they're trusting that those who are meant to do this are going to follow suit. And of course they do. They're following suit very quickly.
I think that's important, because you said, okay, so how do I handle, well, I didn't know who was going to do what, and I couldn't depend on any one person if I was going to create the results that people were going to try and emulate. So I had to bulletproof my success, and the only way I knew to bulletproof my success was to sponsor enough people that, in spite of me, there was going to be some carry forward, that people would continue.
Yes, I think the same thing, and I think it today. I'm constantly sponsoring wonderful new people. I think it's exactly the same today as when you started. It is to yes, to withstand any attrition or whatever, is to have enough people that you're sponsoring, that the really great, excited ones are going to really be your team players. They're going to be your partners. So this is fantastic. Now, we have a question as we both see here, and we're going to look at this question. But before we go to the question, just tell us, just in the last 21 years, you've created a multi-million-dollar business. Just what does it look like? You have, some diamonds in your teams, and what's it look like?
Well, I feel kind of embarrassed because I don't have the numbers to tell you how many diamonds and how many royal diamonds and how many platinums and so forth. I have averaged, if I look at my earnings over the 21 years, I have averaged over $1 million a year as income, and I have people in my business who have averaged almost $1 million a year themselves, and so it's not just and that's the thing I think that I like to state clearly, and that is what I can take responsibility for is having given birth to my business. But I certainly can't take responsibility for the individual activities and that happen independently of me and have happened over the years independently of me, because people are motivated by their own dreams. And I think that's one of the most incredible things about network marketing, is that you're harnessing and leveraging the power and conviction of other people's dreams. Yes. And you can't put a price tag on that, and that's worth more than all the gold in China. So it's kind of it's one of the few businesses that really allows such a thing to flourish, because it's really up to the individual to take it on and go as far as and fast as they want. There's nothing inhibiting them. There's no nepotism, favoritism. There's no, doesn't matter which educational backgrounds. Network marketing is truly an even playing field, and that is something that we leverage by empowering others to run with it, take advantage of it.
Absolutely. We love
I've got many diamonds. I've got many royal diamonds.
Yeah.
Many platinums. If you ask me how many people in my organization, I don't know. Numbers definitely in the tens and tens of thousands. And that's all great, and that's all impressive. And as much as we've done, as much as I feel we've done, you could roll a bowling ball down the road here and not hit a single person who's heard about Nikken, even in the building that I'm at. So it's like, we haven't done enough. Exactly.
We've hardly begun. We say it's about 1% market penetration, and that makes it so exciting for anyone who sees that vision. And I love the way you put it, that just the power of everybody's dreams, and that they get to put that to the test. And it's very, very moving and very beautiful. And I do remember something you said just recently, actually, when we talk a lot, but in Orlando when we were there together last year. Of course, we're going to be coming up in May for that this year, the Royal Alliance event. But you said to me, wow, isn't it amazing that we get paid so well to love people? Do you remember that? And we were walking back from dinner, and you just said, it's incredible. And it is, because you're always looking to bring out the best in others and to empower them and to inspire them. And I've never been in a business that's so exciting that way, that you know that you can't do it alone, and that together everyone achieves more. It is the true meaning of team. And it's just wonderful to hear how you've done that. And of course, we all love and admire you and respect you so greatly for your leadership in Nikken. And we know we're in the beginning. So I'm going to ask you this question from Maggie McGee, New Diamond in Vancouver. She asks, what is one of the key challenges that you dealt with in building your Nikken business, and how did you overcome it? In addition to the one you just described, of course, perhaps a more recent one. So what are one of the key challenges?
There's a couple that, obviously you go through various challenges. This is a growth business. If you're not growing, you're on your way out, not of the business, but of life, period. I think, you're either here to participate in life, or you're on your way out. You're just taking the slow path, maybe, but so growth is inevitable, especially if you're in Nikken, and especially if you're going to move forward in Nikken. Success and progress in Nikken has a direct correlation to your growth, your personal development, and I learned that by experience, and that's what humans being more really means. That's the whole point of the motto. Yes. And so one of the very first things that I had to overcome was, because I had such a powerful conviction. I think that I had a focus, I had a drive, and I was very systematic in my approach to the business. My scientific helmet went on, and I quickly dissected, like I did in electrical, how to do what I had to do. I figured out what are the processes, what are the key issues that make things happen, and of course laid out the path for people to follow, and was frustrated beyond belief when they didn't follow it. So, I think my first real hurdle was trying to deal with what I perceived as just a super level of, I don't even know what to call it without sounding so condescending, but just the fact that, okay guys, look, it's right there, it's laid out for you, it's like ABC, it's straightforward, but I couldn't get people to follow hook, line, and sinker, even though I had the results to prove it.
Yes.
And so it was very frustrating. And I think I was platinum actually at the time. So I had gotten all the way to platinum. Sure, there were challenges all the way along the way, but this was a big one. This was a huge juggernaut, because it was either going to kill me or I was going to kill somebody. So
metaphorically, hopefully.
Metaphorically. So it was, I think, I don't know, Jesus comes to mind on the cross saying, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And the idea that, I mean, he could be dying and at the hands of these people, and yet he could still see that it wasn't really their fault, because they didn't know what they didn't know. They didn't understand what they didn't understand. And so I started to understand that there was clearly a gap in consciousness, that not everybody sees everything the same way. And even though I saw it clearly, that didn't mean people had to see it that way. They saw it the way they saw it. They saw life the way they saw it, and so forth. Mm-hmm. And it basically was a really extremely humbling experience when I realized I couldn't control it. I couldn't make it duplicatable. No matter how duplicatable I put it in formula, yes, it still came down to the human condition of people's own ability to see it for themselves and how to apply it and so forth. That was one of the hurdles. The other hurdle, I think, came later on, and that was I was still fighting with the idea of having a career in music. I mean, I was a diamond. I was making huge income. I was traveling the world, and yet I was still seeing my peers at the Grammy Awards, going up there and getting Grammys, and thinking, gosh, you know, maybe that could have been me, maybe that should be me, and yes, and so I was constantly in this battle within, and it happened one night. I was at an event. We were getting together, all the diamonds and royal diamonds, before it was a dinner, just before our major event that we were putting on that weekend. And I was getting suited up, and I was watching the Grammys, and I watched a performance of one of the artists that I just admire the most, and she came off, and then there was a subsequent performance, and I thought, gosh, I bet you she was sitting in the front row and thinking, she probably couldn't relate to that artist whatsoever. It was totally two genres of music that were so unrelatable. I thought to myself, mm-hmm, here's this incredible artist having to put up with this noise. And I really consider that music quite noisy, jungle music, I call it. And I just thought, she probably can't relate to a single person backstage. She's so, she's not, you know what I mean? It was, I could see, I could sense
in her talent, really.
Yeah, I could see that. I could sense that. And I thought, mm-hmm, and so I was going downstairs, and I was at the back of the room, and they're going to call me up to speak and address my peers. And I couldn't help myself. All of a sudden, it was a realization that I had that I needed to share with my peers. And I said, you know, I was just upstairs watching this, and I thought, all this time I've been struggling with the idea that maybe I belong here, maybe I don't. And I realized that I have more in common with all the people in this room, all my peers, than I could ever have with any of those people backstage at the Grammys. I just thought, I am totally where I'm supposed to be.
Wow, and that's huge. That's a huge thing to know, because then you're not fighting within yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe this, maybe that, maybe something better, or do I think, you know. So
Yeah, the grass is greener on the other side
yeah,
problem, and
totally.
and no matter what level of success you have, if there's the grass greener on the other side somewhere, it'll knock you down. We've seen people in this business at the highest ranks leave because they thought the grass was greener
Oh
somewhere else.
yeah, it's all in the mind and in the
Totally.
emotions and that congruency with spirit. One second, I just want to mention just
Yeah.
quickly here. Hey, if you would like to participate or you have questions for us, please do give us a shout on Twitter. Our username is at Royal Alliance #1. And, or come in, we're monitoring our Google Plus and Facebook chat. So just search for the Royal Alliance and we will pop right up and you'll be able to ask your question there. So don't be shy and take this opportunity to ask Mike whatever you might like to ask him. So, but this is great because I think that everyone has those thoughts. Maybe there's something bigger, something grander, for my life. But when you realize that you're helping the world, I mean, your business must be in at least, I would think, 30 countries by now.
Yeah.
I mean, your influence as a spiritual being having a human experience is enormous. It's a global influence. And that is very, very powerful. Now, can one song do that? Yeah, absolutely. John Lennon's Imagine was an amazing song and has influenced us all in a gorgeous, beautiful fashion. Is it common? Not necessarily. But what you have done is something really, really extraordinary. And you're always helping to build others up to be as good as you or even greater than you. Right? It's okay, isn't it, for someone in your downline to be better than you?
As a matter of fact, I remember my very, very first written goal in Nikken was to have an organization of 100,000 people, and I was the least important person in my business. And so
Right
in order to
on,
be the least
exactly.
important person, that means there's other people doing stuff without me that don't need me and are
Absolutely.
successful on their own right.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, and gosh, Mike, our time is just going so fast. I'm like, oh my goodness, we have 15 minutes, and there's so much I want to talk with you about. Because we do have such shared ideologies. I would say both of us we're big readers. We think a lot. We talk a lot about the things we're mulling over and the books we're reading. And often you're reading a book and I just read it, or I'm reading a book and you just read. I mean, it's amazing, don't you see? We see so much of that commonality of spirit and I feel like both of us have this fascination and love of science. We have a fascination and love of the arts, and there is a tremendous amount of artistry in network marketing and in Nikken, as well as science, with leveraging time compounding effort. So then there's the spirit piece. There's this powerful, powerful spirit piece that you and I talk a lot about these days, and how we both felt called. I was so touched and impressed when you told me the time you told me and showed me pictures of the round table that you created in your home, which I've come to, this beautiful castle in Toronto, and you had pictures of knights and pictures that I really related to, things I had seen in the past, paintings that I said, yeah, I've always loved that painting and not sure why. And then you had this round table for the Knights of the Round Table, and we've talked about that. And could you talk a little about all of this part of your life and how you see it fitting with Nikken?
I was so captivated by the new head office, both when it was under construction and afterwards, and the detail that went into it. And I mean every detail, from the pot lights that they used to the leather chairs in the Masuda room to, I mean, just the how they work with glass and metal and wood and all of the finishes. It was just something there was an elegance and a beauty and a peacefulness. And again, that's that side of me that sees the non-randomness of what appears random. It's like there's the patterns and the geometry of things, and so I started when I'd fly on airplanes. In that downtime, I would take out a piece of paper and I would draw something. And I started envisioning something for myself that would be able to bring Nikken head office into my home and make the experience in my home feel similar in the textures, in the materials, and so forth, but also uniquely my own.
Yes.
And so, having the background that I had, it was easy for me to sort of conjure things up, and I would pick up pieces as I was going, how to actually support that metal and that glass together. And I would see it in airports. One day I was out at the Toronto International Airport, and there was the maple leaf on a very thick piece of glass, just a small piece of glass. It was a maple leaf etched in it, and in a spotlight from above, shining through the edge of the glass, illuminating what was etched in the glass of this maple leaf, giving it dimension. It was just spectacular.
Oh,
I thought, wow, that would be really cool to do that with the pillars of the 5 pillars. And so I know you've all seen this picture. This is a pretty one, popular one here.
Oh, yes, we love that one.
That's my table. My table's actually 5 pieces of 3/4 inch glass, where it's big. It's 10 feet across, 2 people per section of glass,
yes.
And etched in the glass are the names of the pillars, and they're illuminated from inside here. There's a wood ensemble that keeps it all together, and it projects light through the glass and illuminates the names, and it's held together by polished stainless steel. It's glass and this wood, and it's interconnected to a flat screen TV and the lighting and so forth. It's all fully integrated as part of the experience of being able to sit at this table in the round of the 5 pillars, which represents the purpose and meaning of everything that we're doing in Nikken, and certainly within the individual. I believe I'm a spirit expressing myself through these 5 pillars. And being 2 people per section would be the knights of my round table. And so my goal is to have those knights assemble. I know that there are 2 positions at that table already taken. One is mine, and one is a person that will remain nameless because they need to be told. But that leaves 8 other people that I would like to draw in and call to action and become my fellow knights of this round table to help take this Nikken message that much further. If I've taken it as far as I have, then I need help to take it a lot further. And so it's been a while that you're bringing this up. In fact, we had this conversation just the other day, and it's really inspired me, Julie. I got to tell you, your conversation with me has really inspired that vision to reignite within me.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited because I'm thrilled that you're really thinking about it again now and really reconnecting with that, because that's a quest. It's the hero's journey, and it's the quest, of course, the Holy Grail. And I talked to you about, bringing together 12 wonderful men in my business and working with those 12 as the knights. And, it's just very, very exciting to do that, because, without a strong vision of who we really are as spiritual beings and what we are chosen to do here, what we choose and what we're also asked to do here on this planet at this time, at this very potent, powerful time in our evolution, I think we get lost in the mundane. We get lost in how to talk to somebody or what to do with a product. But when you've got that vision of who you're being called to be, you rise up to that vision, and then things start happening, and you become very, very an attractor of wonderful other people who recognize that you're really aiming for the highest in yourself, and they want to be with you and associated with you. Do you agree with that?
Oh my, I mean, 100%. And I like what you just said, that we get trapped in the mundane, worrying about majoring in the minors with small details. And while those small details may come in handy at some point, we do need to engineer the airplane in order to get it off the ground and make sure it stays off the ground when we want it to. Who builds airlines are not engineers typically. They've got a vision for moving people around the world, and they let the engineers worry about the design of aircraft. So sure. It's the idea that if you really want to move the world, if you want to change the world, it starts with the vision. Everything important of any importance has always started with the vision, and the vision of these 5 pillars, the vision of the Knights of the Round Table, if that conjures up within all of us something spectacular, something bigger than life, and to feel like you have an opportunity to really make manifest something like that in your own life, and believe me, there's not enough Knights of the Round Table. We could have 1,000 of these round tables and it still wouldn't be enough. There's 7 billion people on the planet that are looking for
Absolutely.
leaders and leadership. And I'm not talking about just because you're popular or because you talk like a leader. I'm talking about the embodiment of that. That's what you're talking about. What is it?
Yes.
What does it look like? What does it feel like? Who are you and who are you becoming? That's such a powerful force of attraction. And I believe that.
Absolutely.
I believe my business grew as a result of the vision that I was trying to, the shoes I was trying to step into.
Yes, yes. And the beautiful thing is that there's as much room for women to be part of the Knights of the Round Table as there are for the men. I mean, it's a glorious time in our world right now where women can really step up and call on those archetypal heroes, that maybe for a man is Superman, and for a woman it may be Joan of Arc, or someone like that. So it's so delicious that we have such a big opportunity for everyone at whatever age, 18 or 90 years old, and they can be a knight at the table. I really love that a lot. It's so inclusive. It's so much about connecting, but I find it really is that connecting to the spirit of another, the connecting to the spirit and calling on that spirit and almost breathing, reminding that person by breathing life back into their dream, into their heart, that they go, yeah, I remember when I was a child, I wanted to be an astronaut, or I wanted to heal the world, or all these wonderful things that we all wanted to do as children. And then as we become adults, it gets obscured by clouds of burdens of, taking care of your mom and your little brothers, or taking care of, a new family and kind of the hustle and bustle of life. So I think it's incumbent upon us as leaders to bring forth in others that vision, as well as in ourselves, of course. So I'm just thrilled about that whole piece, and it's very near and dear to my heart. In fact, last night I went down to the bookshop because I'm doing some research on a book that I'm starting to write, and in there, as I walked to the business section to do the research I wanted to do, right there was this massive book called The Knights. And I almost fell over because, I would just be thinking so much about it. We'd be talking about it. And so I just sat there and just started reading it and looking at the beautiful imagery and reading about the Grail, and really that the Grail was the connection to God. That was the ultimate seeking of the Grail, was to find complete connection with God. And it was so thrilling to read about that.
I think that Nikken is a wonderful vehicle for expressing that the mechanical side of this spiritual lesson, of this spiritual exercise, because it's in alignment with the essence of who we are. We are, by definition, I am a spirit, and I'm seeking to express that which I am through the means that I have available to me in human form, beginning with my body, my mind, which is my antenna, if you will, the way I perceive the world. My family are the immediate relationships, society, the extended relationships, and finances is the functional medium through which I can exchange and acquire and manipulate the surroundings. And so I'm a spirit seeking to express. And so the beauty of the Nikken philosophy, then marry that up with the Nikken technology and the mission of wellness and wellness homes and so forth, is in perfect alignment. It's it's a beautiful alignment of all of these highly spiritual ideologies. And so if I had to do it again, I would do nothing different. I know that's a question that often comes up. Knowing what you know today, what would you have done differently? The only thing I would have done differently is I wouldn't have stopped sponsoring at Royal Diamond.
Yes. Yes.
I sort of pulled the reins and said, okay, now I got to help my people. Well, I wasn't helping my people by turning around and facing them. What people want is leadership. I mean, show them your back.
Yes.
And so that's what I would have done differently. But in the early stages, would I have sponsored as many people? Would I have? Yeah, absolutely I would. Because I wasn't driven by the magnets. I was driven by the sense of purpose that this could change the world. That's a much bigger picture than just a magnet. And the fact that our product line has expanded and so forth, that's just great. More tools, more means to reach out and touch more people in a more profound way. I'm having a deeper penetration on the individual. But the point is, with so many people on this planet devoid of what we're talking about, don't have access to be able to actually manifest, tangibly manifest in their life, this experience, be guided and assisted by people who are qualified, not just pontificating, but who have walked the miles, who can lead them by example.
Yes.
This is what we bring to the table. And this is why it truly is a calling of the Knights of the Round Table. It has to take one to lead. There was a leader in that group too. But then they all joined forces and they all put their swords down at that table as equals. They all earned the right to be at that table as equals for a bigger cause beyond any one of them as individuals. And
so
that's
yeah, sorry, don't want to interrupt.
No,
absolutely, we're with you 100%. We have just 4 minutes left here, and we have a question that I would love you to respond to at this moment, given what you're saying, because it tallies right in. This is Graham's Garden. He's asking on Twitter, with the leap in the product technologies and with the new enhanced compensation plan, do you think a similar blitz or launch activity that, like you did, would get the same result as 21 years ago?
Yes, of course I do. It's physics, you know. It's the law of physics. I don't think people have changed one iota in all that time in terms of individuals. We all want the same things. 21 years ago, what did you want? Probably what you want today. Maybe more of one thing versus another, but we all ultimately want balance in our lives. We want happiness, we want joy, we want abundance, and these are fundamentals. So most of the people out there who don't know Nikken exists have not experienced that to any great degree necessarily, and so this is still a vehicle for them to achieve it. It's not the product, it's not the technology, and it's certainly not the compensation plan that drives this. Don't believe that for a second. That's just how we carve up the money. But if there's no money to carve up, what difference does it make what the compensation plan looks like? What drives Nikken are people.
Yes.
That's what drives Nikken. And while we say the products drive the people, they validate the drive. They give us horsepower. They give us the validation, because I'll tell you, I saw that video before I had a product experience and I was inspired. What was I inspired by? I was inspired by the possibility that my life could be better, that other people's lives were in fact being improved with this situation. And so I didn't have the validation yet in my own hands to say, oh, now I can take this on and run with it. But I was inspired already. So already my heart was on fire. Already I was living and breathing the idea that I could have this going for me and I could make a difference in the lives of other people. And then the validation came, which was the product experience, which was the compensation plan. All those things came after.
Yes.
The initial inspiration. So what inspired me to do this was not the compensation plan, and it wasn't the product. It was the possibility. Then the other things validated it. Yes,
yes. Yes, so in our last moment here, minute or two of wrapping up, possibility, I mean, that's exactly the word that came to my mind too before you said it. It was so funny. I was like, gosh, here we're exactly on the same track. And so just what would you say to people now? Here we are, 2013, an amazing time in our lives, in the world. What would you say, just to complete this time of ours together today, what would help them, do you think, to know what you know, to see what you see? I love the law. I love the law. I love the law of creation. I love the God's modus operandi. You know, I just love the laws that are immutable and they apply to everyone equally. And so I love the fact that that means that everyone truly has an equal opportunity to be and create all that they want. And really, if there's a fit, if you find a vehicle that fits with your personality, then you've got, you know, so much going for you already. But what will determine ultimately your success
is whether or not you can embrace it and make it your own, and if you can allow your vision to expand into something bigger than it already is, bigger than what you have for yourself. Most of us have tamed our vision because we've let life beat us down. And then all of a sudden we come into a situation where we're being encouraged to expand our vision again. And I know we're gun shy about it. I know we are really gun shy about it, fearful even, because what if our hopes don't get realized? What if we can't really make this happen? Will it finally crush me? Well, you're going to be surrounded by people who will love you into that role, who will help you and nurture you and remind you of who you really are.
Yes.
One with the all
Yes.
with the one for all for one, and we will create together the expression of you that's looking to come out, because if you couldn't imagine it, it wouldn't exist. The very fact that you can imagine it means it's there. It just has to be realized. So I think that's what we're here to help people do. Nikken is a vehicle. It's an incredible vehicle. It's not the only vehicle, but it is one that certainly fit with my personality, certainly fit with yours.
Yeah.
And I think if you find alignment, that everything that Nikken stands for at all levels, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, then run with it. Don't look back.
Absolutely. Oh, Mike, absolutely. It is such a pleasure to be with you. I love you so much. You're such a wonderful brother. I always wish to have brothers, and I just love it that you're a brother for me. So thank you for everything you do for all of us.
Thank you, Julie. Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste, my friend. Love you lots.